All right, everybody, welcome to a very, very important edition of Teaching Crypto. Please hit that like, that subscribe, bell notification. Super chats in the store are always open. Anytime you guys can support us, we truly greatly appreciate it. Mr. FOMO, we've got a gigantic, huge show today. We're going to link in world events. Biggest story in the country in the last 24 hours. We're going to talk about it because it directly relates to Bitcoin, and it's got an amazing history to Bitcoin that you're not going to see on the mainstream media. So if you have not done so, please subscribe to the show because we're giving you stuff that other people will not and refuse to talk about. So Mr. FOMO, about a day and a half ago, Julian Assange was finally released after years of being in captivity. I want to go through how this relates to Bitcoin. We will talk about the Bitcoin price at the end, so stick around for that. But I do want to talk about this because I think this is really, really important. Now, here's the thing. You may or may not know a lot about WikiLeaks. The thing about WikiLeaks is none of it has been proven. None of it has proven to be false. Now, the big controversy is the way the information came out because the U.S. government didn't release this information as a favor or by choice. But we learned a lot of stuff that they did not want us to know. Let's keep it brutally clear here. And so they tried to shut him down. They tried to shut down WikiLeaks. And PayPal froze the account. And this is the beginning of Bitcoin. In fact, this gentleman was a champion of Bitcoin, was only at $10. And we'll talk about why. Okay, so PayPal, Visa, MasterCard, Swiss Bank, they all froze the accounts, right? And so now you're wondering, how is this going to continue? Because a lot of people were just amazed about what was in the WikiLeaks account. Now, as part of the agreement, they've made WikiLeaks delete all the information that was there. And I wish and I hope a lot of American citizens read that information because, again, the government is not saying none of it is true. They're saying you got this information illegally. We don't want people to know about it. They're not contesting the honesty of it. And so that is where we get set up, Mr. FOMO, where he's kind of stuck. WikiLeaks is in trouble because how are they going to get money? Well, there was something just created called Bitcoin. And all of a sudden, what happens? Okay. Bitcoin comes into play because Bitcoin users at the time, Mr. FOMO, and we were not in Bitcoin at the time, we're one of the first to file for support. Okay. Why? Because you can't control Bitcoin like a bank account, right? So a developer reached out to him, and what eventually happened, long story short, WikiLeaks began receiving Bitcoin. They were kind of desperate. They put a Bitcoin address there, and they got it. And because of WikiLeaks, we know not exactly how much the government's been lying to the public, but we know that it has been lying to the public. And so here's the thing. This shows the power of Bitcoin, right? Because if it wasn't for Bitcoin, this information wouldn't have been available to the public and they would have shut this guy down. So I want you to react to that.
I think the one thing that you pointed out that was important is that excuse me, as part of this agreement, he is not admitting that anything in this was false or that he produced any false information or that anything that was taken from the U.S. government was, in fact, misleading. It was all true according to this. I mean, if you read between the lines, according to this plea deal, he's going home and only admitting to the idea that he got the information illegally, that he hacked in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which, whatever. But the information that he got, no one is saying, no, that is false. That's not part of the plea agreement as far as I can see. And so I think that's an important thing. But I think when you look back at what happened with him getting all that Bitcoin, it essentially proved that it was tamper proof, that it was government proof, that it was, you know, that it was money that was outside the normal realm of money. You could use it without having to go through the normal channels. And so if your accounts were shut down for whatever reason, you could still use it. Now, say what you will about criminals using it. That wasn't the case here. This was about keeping free speech alive. And so you see that, and from what I understand, some of the things that he discovered are on the blockchain now, sort of like ordinals somehow. I didn't get too far into that to see how he did it. But as far as I understand, some of that information from WikiLeaks is never going to come off the internet because it's somehow linked to the blockchain, or it's somehow on the blockchain. So it's never going to come off. And so I think that just this entire thing proves the importance of Bitcoin. And like you were saying before, that Bitcoin is essential. It's not just something that you might invest in or you might look into, but it becomes essential when you look into problems like this or things like this. That's, I don't know much about Julian Assange outside of what we've learned through this, so I couldn't really tell you much, because the mainstream media, outside of the things that are negative about him, they haven't really covered the guy. Would you agree with that?
Well, he's been in jail for a while, and quite frankly, some of the stuff that came out in the report is uncomfortable to cover because it's a lot of dark stuff. I mean, you have footage of civilians in Iraq being mowed down indiscriminately. That's just one example. You have Hillary Clinton asking if they can use a drone to kill him. And so that's not that's the tip of the iceberg, guys. Go back and read the other stuff. And again, we're not a political show. However,
I wonder if anybody ever thought about droning me.
There are some people. Well, I'm not going to bring it up here. Maybe it would help the bank. No, I'm just kidding. Maybe I was going to say maybe it would help the bankruptcy process in Voyager, but I'm not going to go there. I'm just joking, guys.
Wouldn't put too much back into the fund.
Here, you can see the chart, though. Look at the Bitcoin donations. So this is a way of supporting free speech that would not have been possible with traditional means of finance. I think that is the lesson we're trying to. This how Bitcoin become legitimate. And I don't think enough crypto shows or mainstream shows are talking about that. This is back when Bitcoin was worth $10 and everyone was saying it was a complete fraud. It'll never make it. In a year, it'll be gone. Look where we are now, 14 years later, and we're upset that Bitcoin is at 60K. And at this time in history, it was at 10K, right? And 10 years from now, people will be upset that it's only at $1 million. 20 years from now, people won't be upset that it's 20 million. And meanwhile, the dollar continues to get stretched out and stretched out and stretched out. But that's not something the mainstream media is going to tell you because it's not obvious to them. It's because they haven't done the homework on Bitcoin and its role. Now, I want to continue to go here. And I know this is not what we normally do.
Well, I think you made a great point there that the dollar is getting stressed out. I mean, not only are we printing money that's diluting the value of your dollar, so that if you're holding money in a savings account, that money is being devalued as we speak. And so that is a problem in and of itself. But we also don't talk enough about the BRICS nations and what they're trying to do to destabilize the dollar as the world's reserve currency. So the dollar is being very stressed out right now, and there's a lot of things going against it, especially when you talk about inflation or you talk about, the devaluing of the dollars in your savings and checking account. And so I think you made a great point there.
So all told, 4,100 Bitcoin were sent to WikiLeaks. And so the total was well over 250 million. MrFOMO would appreciate it 2,033%. Okay. 200,033%. That's right. Okay. So that gives you a broader scope of things here. Now, here's the thing that now that information has been taken off. You said you can find it somewhere. I would hope that people would go and they would read that because it's related to what's happening today. It's related to what's happening in the future. And you as a American citizen deserve the right to know what's going on. And especially when the dollar gets less and less value over time. And you see here the power of Bitcoin it's going to be, it's not going to be an option in the future. And I keep saying that. I can't stress that enough. Really quickly, you talked about there were different politicians that were came out in support of Julian Assange and some that criticized him. Now, the mainstream, how do I put this? The traditional politician like Mike Pence was very critical, but I do want to read, and I'm not endorsing him, although there are some things I really do agree with Cornel West. I do want to read something that Cornel West said, and this is kind of proof that he does have popularity from both sides, right? The right and the left.
You're talking about the presidential candidate.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no. I'm saying Julian Assange has support from both right and left for people that really truly believe in free speech. My dear brother Julian Assange is free. We struggled, fought, and prayed for many years for this wonderful moment. He also should be pardoned immediately, which was not. He had to plead guilty as part of coming free because he committed no crime. He simply exposed the barbaric crimes of the American empire. I'm going to stop there. You can kind of put that in your head and, you do your own reading, you do your own research, as we say. But I thought that was a powerful statement. One more thing. When they released him, he had to take a private jet, and they wouldn't pay for that. So what happened? What happened? Goes back to Bitcoin. Wow. Guess what? Okay. Guess what someone did? They donated 8 Bitcoin to pay for his jet. Why did they do that? They didn't want to know who it was. So it could have been someone very prominent, right? Some people are theorizing it could have been Dorsey, the old guy that used to run Twitter before it became X. Who knows? But that's what Bitcoin allows people to do, is unanimously support something without being targets. And I'm not just talking about being targets from the government, but being targets from people that don't agree with what you might have to say. So again, this is not normally the way we steer the show, but given the world events that have been happening, and I've seen a lot of information not being given to the general public. And so that angers me. So I definitely thought today's episode was necessary.
Well, I mean, a couple of things here. One, the fact that it's censorship free, I think, is the important thing that you're pointing out here. Because people are sending him money, or they're sending him Bitcoin, excuse me, because they don't want to send money to a guy that all the other banks have said you shouldn't be working with, right? That would make you a target, not just from politicians or people that disagreed or mainstream media, but also the banks. You wouldn't want to be targeted by the banks, especially not the way that Julian Assange and WikiLeaks were. And so I think that's an important thing to realize, is that they did that not just to avoid being known, but avoid being targeted by people.
But the thing is, he exposed
avoid being targeted by an entity.
I just want to make it clear, just so you guys don't get mixed up here. This isn't an attack on one political party. This is an attack on both, because they have a monopoly on the information that you get. He exposed both, and that's why traditional politicians don't like him.
Okay? Well, I think you pointed out earlier, I think without saying it in so many words, but it's important to understand that if you have a government, they're lying to you. So it doesn't matter what country you're in or what party you affiliate yourself with, they're lying to you. Somehow, some way, they're not telling you the whole truth, or they're not telling you any of the truth. And so it's important for you to go to places like this to get your information. It's important for us to independently search out the right kind of information and the stuff that is the truth.
I mean, someone that tells you that Bitcoin is a complete fraud, what are they going to say 10 years from now when it's worth $1 million? Oh, that 10K you had, I take it. They're not going to say sorry. They're going to be like, oh, I wish I had known that. I mean, I didn't know anything about Bitcoin in 2010. And I probably wouldn't have listened to someone. Hopefully I would have done my research, but I may have, if you had come up to me back in the day, and you said, hey, why don't you look at this Bitcoin thing and put some money into it? I probably may have been lazy and not done my homework. That's just
I would have taken a flyer on it.
Good.
If somebody would have said, "Hey, look, there's this digital money you can buy for a penny," I would have been like, "All right, why not? I'll put some money into it."
Yeah.
But I am Mr. FOMO. I'll pretty much do that for anything.
Yeah. All right, really quickly, let's talk about the Bitcoin price here. Okay. So we've rallied a little bit. We went from 59. We're back up to 61 here. And again, we've got to get to 70 and hold before we get excited. Here's the thing, guys. I still think there's a lot of sell pressure. We've talked about Mt. Gox. We've talked about Germany. Even the United States government supposedly is going to sell a little more Bitcoin right now coming up. I just saw that today. So I don't anticipate this week and next week are going to be that great. I still think, hopefully, now, depending on world affairs, I'll keep saying that, I think we will have a bounce back mid-July into late July. I'm looking for 70K reestablished in July, 80K pretty early in August. I don't think we're going straight to 100. I think there will be some type of pushback between 80 and 100, but I still do believe we will get to 100K in October.
First thing, it doesn't bother me that Bitcoin has fallen like this. I understand that there's sell pressure on it, and you stated that beautifully. And so seeing it go back down to these levels, I didn't think it was going to go back down to, or wasn't sure that it could go back down to, makes me kind of happy because it gives me more opportunity to accumulate Bitcoin and some of the alts. And so quite frankly, knowing what I know, this is par for the course, and it allows me, it's the market taking a knee for me so that I can jump back in. And so I'm grateful for this, but I also know that I believe that late July is when we're going to see that bounce back, just like we have in other summers. And so I think late July is when you start to see things really explode. And I think your prediction of 80 in August is probably right on track with what I'm thinking. But I think that we are still going to see some explosive growth in the end of this year. So I don't think that 80 is where it will finish before the end of 2024.
No, and again, I said on the last show I did on my own, 120 to 150 is now where I kind of think we top off here. But again, things could change. We really greatly appreciate your support, guys. If you could share this out, we haven't done so, hit that subscribe button. What are you waiting for? You're not going to get any information like this anywhere else in the Bitcoin and crypto world. For Mr. FOMO, this is AZcrypto. You guys have a wonderful Wednesday evening.
See ya.